You ever get that gut punch moment when you realize your whole life's been running on a lie?
Yeah.
Mine started at 3:07 p.m. on a Tuesday, in the middle of our open plan office, under those cheap fluorescent lights that make everyone look like they need a funeral. Melissa, my wife, my so-called partner of 12 years, and the company's head of HR, stood there in her power heels, fake smile stretched thin, eyes sharp like she'd been waiting for this moment. She slid the paper across my desk without a word at first. No, hey honey. No, let's talk in private. Just the sound of the paper's edge scraping the cheap wood, like a guillotine blade. Accept the 60% salary reduction, she said, voice sugar-coated poison, or I'll find someone who will. The room went quiet. People who'd been pretending to type stopped mid-keystroke, staring at their screens like middle school kids trying not to get caught eavesdropping. She'd done it to humiliate me. I knew it. She wanted the whole damn staff to see me on my knees. I need 24 hours, I said calmly, even though my pulse was hammering in my ears. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Her smirk told me she thought she'd won. She clicked away on those heels, hips swinging like a metronome of arrogance. That night, I sat in my car with the engine off, watching the rain smear the city lights across my windshield. I didn't go home, didn't want to see her, didn't want to smell that perfume she wore when she wanted to manipulate me. The one I used to love, before I realized it was her game scent. Instead, I called the company's biggest competitor. Turns out they'd been waiting for me to jump ship. They didn't just want me, they wanted me badly. It was during that call that I heard something in the background, not in my car, but on their end. A muffled laugh. A voice. A man's voice. I froze because I knew that laugh. I'd heard it at our last Christmas party. 2 drinks in, standing too close to Melissa. I hung up quickly, pretending it was bad reception. But my hands were shaking. The puzzle pieces were starting to slide into place, and the picture forming was one I didn't want to see. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up in the driver's seat of my car with a stiff neck and the taste of stale coffee in my mouth. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. Don't be late. We have a 9 a.m. meeting. Bring the updated sales report. No good morning. No, are you okay? Just another order like I was one of her subordinates instead of her husband. I walked into the office at 8:55. Melissa was already there, hair perfect, makeup sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't even glance at me, but I noticed something. She was on her phone, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. Her fingers flew over the screen, her thumb brushing her lip as she typed. When she saw me, her face snapped back into that cold, professional mask. You've got 10 minutes to present your numbers, Daniel, she said, using my name like I was just another employee. That was the first crack. The second came at lunch. I walked into the break room to grab my sandwich from the fridge, and she was there, whispering into her phone, voice soft, almost playful. When she noticed me, she jumped, and hung up so fast she nearly dropped the phone. Who was that? I asked, my tone casual, though my gut was already tightening. She rolled her eyes. Work. You're paranoid. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the third crack came later that week, and it wasn't subtle. We'd always had this ritual. Friday nights, we'd cook together, open a bottle of wine, and watch some dumb movie. That Friday, she came home 2 hours late, hair a little messy, lipstick faded. No explanation, just a flippant. Had to work late. You wouldn't understand. When I pressed, she snapped. Why do you always have to interrogate me? Jesus, Daniel, you're suffocating. Her words hit like a slap, not because they were loud, but because they were so rehearsed, like she'd been saving that line for weeks. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the last month in my head. Her sudden obsession with her phone, the extra hours at work, the way she'd stop touching me unless it was for show in front of friends. I remembered how she used to lean into me on the couch, head on my shoulder, like I was the only safe place she had. That woman was gone. On Saturday, I decided to stop guessing and start looking. Melissa was in the shower when I picked up her phone from the nightstand. My hands were trembling, part fear, part adrenaline. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but it didn't take long to find it. A message thread with a contact saved as M. Not Mom, not Mike from accounting. Just M. The last message made my stomach twist. Last night was perfect. Still thinking about you. Can't wait for round 2 winking face. There it was. Proof. And it wasn't the proof that hurt the most. It was the timestamp. Friday. The night she'd worked late. The water shut off. I dropped the phone back exactly how I'd found it and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. When she walked out in her towel, humming like nothing had happened, I knew 2 things. 1, she had no idea I knew. 2, I wasn't going to confront her just yet, because now I wanted to see how deep this went. And I was ready to digby Sunday morning. I'd decided. This wasn't going to be a screaming match in the kitchen or some tear-soaked soap opera scene. If Melissa wanted to play games, I was going to play better. But unlike her, I wasn't going to get sloppy. I started with the easiest weapon. Silence. Not the cold shoulder, not obvious sulking, just a shift. I still made the coffee, still asked her about work, still laughed at the stupid TV shows we watched, but I stopped giving her anything real. She didn't notice at first. People like Melissa don't notice the ground crumbling under them until they're already falling. Monday morning, I told her I had an early meeting downtown and left before sunrise. In reality, I was parked across from her office by 8 a.m., coffee in hand, waiting. Sure enough, she didn't show up until 9:40, wearing a different outfit than she'd left the house in. The smile on her face said everything I needed to know. By Tuesday, I had a plan. I called my old college buddy, Ethan, a tech wizard who now ran a private investigations business. Ethan didn't ask a lot of questions, just gave me a low whistle when I explained. "You want the full package?" he asked. "Everything," I said. "Where she goes, who she sees, what she says when she thinks no one's listening." That night, while Melissa was working late, Ethan installed a discreet GPS tracker in her car and mirrored her phone to a secure server. I hated myself a little for crossing that line, but I hated the idea of being played for a fool even more. The first week's data came in fast. She wasn't staying late at the office. She was visiting a boutique hotel 20 minutes away. Always the same room. Always on Thursdays and Fridays. The GPS logs were airtight. The phone records? Worse. M had a name now, Mark Hollis. I recognized him instantly, one of the senior managers at a vendor company we'd worked with last year. Tall, loud, the kind of guy who laughs too hard at his own jokes. I'd even had beers with him once. The messages between them were disgusting in their familiarity. Inside jokes, private nicknames, and vivid talk about their meetups that made my stomach turn. One even referenced the Friday I'd been sitting at home, waiting with dinner, while she was making memories with him. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I decided to set the hook deeper. On Wednesday, I made a point of telling her I'd be out of town for a client pitch on Friday night. Her eyes lit up, too fast, too bright. "Oh, that's fine," she said, pretending to check her calendar. "I might have drinks with the girls anyway." I smiled. "Have fun." Friday came. I packed an overnight bag and drove out of town, or at least, I let her think I did. In reality, I parked 3 blocks from that same hotel and waited. Sure enough, at 7:12 p.m., Melissa's car rolled up. She got out in a short red dress I'd never seen before, laughing into her phone. 10 minutes later, Mark arrived. They didn't even bother going in separately. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel, watching them disappear inside. My heart was pounding, but not from heartbreak. From the cold, sharp clarity of knowing I had her. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. The tracker, the messages, the logs, it was all there. What I needed now was timing. When I got home that night, I acted normal. Asked her how her drinks went. She said, "Fine, nothing special." Without blinking. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just lying. She'd built an entire alternate reality in her head where her lies were the truth. And I was about to shatter it. If you're going to blow up someone's lies, you can't just walk in and yell, "Gotcha." That's amateur hour. No, you wait for the moment they're standing on the tallest pedestal they've built for themselves. Then you kick it out from under them. For Melissa, That moment came the following Thursday at our company's quarterly review. It's her stage. She loves it. Standing at the head of the conference table, telling the board how her HR policies keep everyone in line, how her leadership shapes the culture. She wore that smug smile, the one that says, "Look at me running the show." I'd invited a special guest, Ethan. Not as Ethan. He came in posing as an outside consultant, evaluating interdepartmental performance. Melissa didn't even blink when I introduced him. Why would she? In her head, I was still the clueless husband. The meeting started as usual, charts, numbers, Melissa interrupting people to clarify points that didn't need clarifying. But when she got to the part about company loyalty and personal integrity, I gave Ethan the signal. He slid a folder across the table, just like she'd done to me with the salary cut paper. Except his folder didn't have performance reports. It had photographs, time-stamped, high-resolution shots of Melissa and Mark entering that boutique hotel, leaving hours later, the GPS logs, screenshots of her messages. Melissa froze mid-sentence. For a moment, she looked like she might actually faint. Then she recovered, but her voice cracked when she said, "What is this?" I leaned back in my chair, calm as a monk. "Evidence," I said, "of your extracurricular activities with Mark Hollis." The room went dead silent. Even the AC hum seemed to stop. Her eyes darted to the board members, to me, back to the photos. "This is ridiculous," she said, forcing a laugh. "He's twisting." Ethan cut her off. "The data's authentic. Direct pulls from your phone and vehicle tracker. There's no twisting here." One of the board members, Greg, the CEO's right-hand man, looked at her like he'd just stepped in something foul. "Melissa, is this true?" She tried again. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," I said. My voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp enough to cut glass. Thursday nights, Fridays, the same hotel, the same room, messages about round 2, lies about working late. "You've been using company hours and resources for this little hobby." Her face flushed deep red, then drained of all color. She tried to speak, but I didn't let her. "You humiliated me in front of this company once," I said, my eyes locked on hers. "You slid that paper across the table and tried to strip my dignity. Today, I'm just returning the favor." Greg cleared his throat. "Melissa, you'll need to step outside while we discuss this internally." She looked at me, eyes full of hate, but also something else. Fear. She knew this wasn't just a personal hit. This could wreck her career. She stood, straightened her jacket, and hissed under her breath as she passed me, "You're going to regret this." I smiled. "I already don't." When the door closed behind her, Greg turned to me. "We'll handle her side. You said you had an offer from a competitor?" I nodded. "They're waiting for me." "Good," he said. "You don't need to be here when we take out the trash." That was the ambush. Precise, clean, and it wasn't over. Because Melissa wasn't the type to crawl away quietly. She was going to come after me, and I was ready for the second round. That I should have known Melissa wouldn't just lick her wounds and vanish. That woman treats grudges like fine wine. She lets them age, and then serves them with venom. 2 days after the board meeting, I started getting calls. First from coworkers, then from mutual friends. Each one a variation of the same awkward tone. Daniel? Did you really?" Turns out Melissa had been busy. She was telling people I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd neglected her for years, that she'd made a mistake, but only because I'd pushed her away. She painted herself as the lonely wife driven into the arms of another man by my supposed coldness. She even claimed I'd been cheating first, which would have been funny if it wasn't so damn predictable. Mark, the clown she'd been meeting at the hotel, jumped on board too. Suddenly he was telling people that I'd threatened him, that I was unstable. I could almost admire their teamwork, the Cheaters Solidarity Club. The real kicker came when I got an email from HR. My own wife had filed an internal complaint against me. Formal accusations of creating a hostile work environment. The nerve of it. She'd used the same professional channels she'd once controlled, trying to paint me as a liability before my resignation went through. But here's the thing about trying to destroy someone who's already holding all the cards. It backfires. I forwarded the HR email to Greg and the rest of the board, along with Ethan's complete dossier. All the messages, logs, and photographs neatly labeled and timestamped. Seems like retaliation, I wrote. I trust you'll handle it. Greg replied within the hour. Consider it handled. Effective immediately. She's on leave pending termination review. The following week, I started getting screenshots from mutual acquaintances. Melissa's rants on social media, dripping with passive-aggressive quotes about toxic men and choosing herself. She posted old vacation photos of us with captions like, "When you realize some people were never who you thought they were." I didn't bite. That's the thing about her. She feeds off reaction. So I gave her nothing. Silence is a weapon too, and it was killing her that I wasn't playing her game. But I wasn't just ignoring her. I was working. The competitor who'd been courting me? They didn't just want me on the team. They offered me a leadership role with a salary that made Melissa's little 60% cut stunt look like pocket change. I signed the contract on a Tuesday and started the following Monday. That same Monday, Melissa tried her boldest move yet. She showed up at my new office. No warning, just stormed in like she owned the place. She was in full battle mode. Hair done. Makeup perfect. That fake sweetness in her voice as she said, "Daniel, we need to talk." I stood, keeping my tone level. "We have nothing to discuss." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You think you've won? You've embarrassed me, but I'll rebuild. And when I do, you'll regret ever crossing me." I smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that lets someone know you're already 10 steps ahead. "Melissa, you're already forgotten. That's your problem." She glared, then turned on her heel and walked out. But I knew that look. She wasn't done. She'd try something else, something reckless. And I was almost looking forward to it. Because the more she fought, the more obvious it became. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing control. And that was the one thing Melissa could never live without. Melissa had always been good at saving her most vicious move for last. She called it keeping the ace up your sleeve. I called it what it was, a sucker punch. And 3 weeks after her public implosion at the company, she tried to land it. It started with a letter from a law firm, certified, neat, official-looking, the kind of envelope that makes your stomach tighten before you even open it. Inside was a claim Melissa was seeking spousal support, compensatory damages for emotional distress, and, my personal favorite, a portion of future earnings due to her contributions to his career. In other words, she wanted to cash out of the marriage like it was a hostile takeover. The filing was loaded with her usual theatrics. She claimed she'd supported me through lean years, that she'd been instrumental in my business contacts, and that I'd destroyed her professional standing out of spite. It read less like a legal claim and more like one of her late-night social media rants. Except now, it had a law firm's letterhead on it. I didn't panic. I called Ethan. "Time for the big file," I told him. He knew exactly what I meant. For weeks, we'd been gathering not just the affair evidence, but proof of her misuse of company resources. Expense account records tied to her hotel visits, mileage claims for work trips that matched the GPS logs, even screenshots of her emailing Mark from her company laptop during office hours. Every shred of it painted a clear picture. This wasn't just infidelity. This was fraud. My lawyer nearly laughed when he saw the file. "She's handing us her head on a silver platter," he said. We filed a counterclaim. No spousal support, no damages, and an itemized list of her misconduct that would make any judge wonder if she'd lost her mind. The cherry on top? A motion to subpoena her company's financial records from her final year there, which would drag her mess into a courtroom and onto public record. When the legal notice was served to her apartment, I heard from a mutual friend that she'd thrown it across the room and started screaming. She called me that night, her voice a mix of rage and disbelief. "You're really going to drag me through court?" She spat. "You started it," I said flatly. "I'm just finishing it." "You're pathetic." "No," I replied. "I'm free. You're the one still fighting ghosts." She hung up, but not before muttering something about making me pay. I didn't take it lightly. Melissa wasn't above getting creative when cornered. Sure enough, the next week, an anonymous email went out to several people at my new job, claiming I'd engaged in inappropriate behavior at my last company. The accusations were vague, clearly designed to stir suspicion without offering anything concrete. Problem for her was, I'd already briefed my new boss on the entire situation and shown him the evidence. Instead of hurting me, the email actually made her look worse. My boss forwarded it to me with a note. She's desperate. Ignore it. And that was the moment I realized her last card had already been played, and it was a joker. The court date was set. The case wasn't just going to end with me walking away clean. It was going to end with her paying the price. Literally. And Melissa? She'd have to sit there, in front of a judge, and watch the walls she'd built around her lies come crashing down. The morning of the hearing, I woke up with the same calm I used to get before a big sales pitch. Melissa wasn't an unknown anymore. She was a hostile market I'd already studied inside and out. I knew her moves, her tone, even the way she'd try to twist her voice into something soft and wounded for the judge. I wore a dark suit, crisp white shirt, no flashy tie. Melissa arrived in a tight black dress and oversized sunglasses, like she was walking a red carpet instead of into a courtroom. Mark wasn't with her. Smart move, considering his name was all over the evidence, but her lawyer was. Middle-aged guy, expensive suit, the kind who thinks charm is a legal strategy. We sat across from each other, the air between us thick. She didn't look at me at first, but when she did, her eyes were full of that same, I'll win somehow fire. The judge came in, all business. Let's get to the point, he said, looking at her attorney. Her lawyer launched into a speech about Melissa's emotional distress, her financial dependence on me, her contributions to my career. He even threw in a line about betrayal in the marriage, which almost made me laugh out loud. Melissa nodded along, occasionally dabbing her eyes with a tissue like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Then it was our turn. My lawyer didn't waste time. He started with the affair, not just hearsay but photographs, GPS logs, text messages. Each one was marked and dated, projected onto a screen for the court. Melissa's fake tears dried up around Exhibit 4. Then came the expense reports, company funds used for her meetings with Mark, receipts from the hotel charged to her work card, mileage reimbursements for trips that matched her tracker's coordinates exactly. The judge's eyebrows climbed higher with every page. Finally, my lawyer read aloud one of her more incriminating messages. Last night was perfect. Still thinking about you. Can't wait for round 2 winking face. Timestamp. Same night she told me she was working late. When he finished, the room was silent except for the shuffle of papers. Melissa's lawyer cleared his throat and tried to argue context. But the judge cut him off. I don't think we need further context, the judge said dryly. Melissa finally spoke, her voice shaking. Not with sadness, but with anger. This is all being twisted. I was unhappy. He didn't care about me anymore. I needed. The judge raised a hand. Mrs. Carter, unhappiness does not entitle you to commit fraud or misuse company funds. That's when I saw it, the flicker of panic in her eyes. The reality setting in that this wasn't one of her office games she could talk her way out of. The ruling was quick. No spousal support. No damages. Court costs split. But only because the judge said he didn't want to rub salt in the wound. And the kicker? My lawyer's motion to release certain financial records to her former employer was approved. If they decided to act on it, she could face an internal investigation, maybe even charges. When we walked out, Melissa finally turned to me. Her voice was low, venomous. You think you've won? You've ruined my life. I looked her dead in the eye.
No, Melissa.
You did that yourself. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see it. She didn't reply, just put her sunglasses back on and walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor like a retreat drumbeat. That was the day I knew she was finished. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Walking out of that courthouse felt like stepping into a different world. The air was lighter. My chest didn't have that constant weight pressing down. For months, my life had been a chessboard with Melissa moving pieces in the shadows. Now the game was over and she'd toppled her own king. The first thing I did was drive. No destination, no plan. I rolled down the windows and let the wind slap my face awake. For the first time in years, I didn't have to check my phone every 10 minutes for the next manipulation, the next fight dressed up as a talk, the next fabricated crisis. Silence had never sounded so good. Melissa tried to contact me twice in the weeks after. A long text about remembering the good times and regretting how things ended. As if the ending had been some mutual drift, not a war she started. Then a shorter one, we should meet to talk. Both went unanswered. I'd wasted enough years listening to her voice. Work became my sanctuary. My new team didn't see me as Melissa's husband or the guy HR had humiliated. They saw results, leadership, and someone who actually gave a damn about the people working under him. The competitor who'd hired me gave me freedom to build my department the way I wanted, and I poured myself into it. Every win at work felt like a middle finger to the chaos she tried to drown me in. Still, the emotional part was messy. There were nights I'd wake up angry for no reason. Dreams where I'd catch her lying all over again. Betrayal has a way of branding itself into your brain. You can scrub it, but the outline's still there. I started running again. It wasn't about fitness so much as burning out the restlessness, pounding the pavement until my head was empty. On weekends, I'd drive out to the coast, sit on the hood of my car, and watch the waves. I needed that kind of quiet, the kind where you can hear your own thoughts without someone twisting them. And in that quiet, I started piecing together what I'd learned. First, if someone shows you their capacity for cruelty, believe it. I'd seen little flashes of Melissa's selfishness over the years. Small lies, petty power plays, and I'd brushed them off. She's just stressed. She didn't mean it like that. Those excuses were the rope she used to hang me later. Second, control is an addiction. Melissa didn't just want to cheat. She wanted to keep me in the dark, to keep winning while I lost without knowing. When I stopped playing along, she unraveled faster than I expected. Third, revenge is overrated, but self-respect isn't. I didn't win because I humiliated her in front of the board or because she walked out of court with nothing. I won because I walked away with my dignity intact. She couldn't take that from me, no matter how many lies she told. If I had to give advice to anyone walking into the fire I just crawled out of, it'd be this: don't wait for a confession. Don't wait for them to suddenly remember they love you. Once you see the betrayal for what it is, act. Quietly if you can, decisively if you must. But act. Melissa's still out there somewhere, probably building a new story where she's the victim and I'm the villain. That's fine. She can keep it. I'm done living in her version of events. The day after the court ruling, I changed my number. I didn't tell her. I didn't announce it. I just cut the last string. And when I did, I realized something. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It's the steady, simple peace of knowing the war is over and you walked out whole.